Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to OKKO Let's Be Heroes, episodes 8 and 9. So yeah, we're only doing 2 episodes today, and it's mostly because I had so many other things to record. First, I had to record My Hero from this past weekend. Then I wanted to pre-record the MLP Season 8 finale, because that already aired, and I don't want to get spoiled to things with that, so I had to pre-record that. Even though that still has almost 5 weeks to go until it's actually released here in America. I still hate that. Yeah. But now we're getting to this, and it's like, yeah, I think I'm only going to do 2 episodes. And also, just to note, they are not connected. Like, I didn't have the time to take the time to put them into one video, so I'm going to have to switch between them. So far this show is, it's not much to talk about. Like, now, I'm not saying that it's bad. It's just there's not a huge amount of things going on that's really big or important or, like, noteworthy. Nothing that's happening that's, like, anything more than just the standard, you know, slice-of-life-y stuff. And again, Steven Universe kind of started the same way, but I'm really hoping they bring in some levels of continuity or some levels of connectivity with its episodes soon. Because while I am enjoying it, that only lasts so far. I mean, that's kind of what happened with me for Wander Over Yonder. I know, kind of a random thing to bring in, but there was a point back on the old channel where I tried reacting to that, and I just could not get into how super episodic it was. Even if it got more story-focused later on, it was just too much, and to the point where it just wasn't that interesting. Even Gravity Falls, which started off pretty darn episodic, had continuity and connectivity through its episodes enough that it kept your interest in this ongoing mystery, especially once Bill was introduced. So it's just that I want things to progress, in a way, you could say. I want things to, I want something to happen. Maybe there's some kind of hero organization, like they do in My Hero Academia, or One Punch Man. Something like that that could be introduced and bring in some kind of level of continuity. Maybe there's a, something that happens that, like, kind of changes the status quo in a way. I don't know. I just want something. I want something to be done with this show. Other than just this kind of silly slice-of-life stuff we got. Because this show has so much potential. And I just don't want it to see it fall flat. Because by a certain point, you have to just... You can't let it go that far. And the first season of this has a shit ton of episodes. I don't know about the second season, but just when I had to go get the episodes for this, I noticed there were like 50-something episodes. And of course, that really cuts down to like 20-something. I think it's probably 26. Because they're half-length episodes. And I think Steven Universe did the same thing, so that's still a shit ton to get through. I don't know, it's just... I want there to be more done with this show, and I want it to happen quick. Like, I don't want it to take as long as it did for Steven Universe. I want there to be something that binds these episodes together, something that really makes it feel like there was a lot of effort put through in this to make it a really good, interesting show. But I mean, hey, at least it's not going the route of Scooby-Doo Mystery Inc. Thank God for that. But yeah, we will start this when the screen fades to black. We're just going to get right into it. So pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link after it fades to black and then fades back in. We will talk about spoilers. I don't know. I'm kind of frazzled right now. Plus, apparently my dad just pulled in. I think he's still going to church or something, but he's dropping off my brother. Because my brother, I mentioned in another video, goes to a similar place right near there that my sister works at. So, either way, so yeah, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts, and will contain spoilers through the episode. So, that being said, thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. Okay, and we are back, and we will begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so, I was talking at the beginning how I wanted this show to start really getting more continuity and big important stuff that was going to matter a little more. That was going to be a little more continuous and less, standardly episodic. Now, I don't know where the events and continuity and stuff with this episode or these episodes are going to go, but I really love them. I think these are two of my favorite episodes so far. In fact, episode 8, I think, is my favorite episode. So let's talk about that to start off with. So episode 8, I Am Dendy. So KO meets this young, kind of nerdy girl named Dendy, who asks him to help her find some stuff to fix her backpack. She's a classmate of his, and apparently she doesn't really have many friends. She kind of lets that slip, but I think it kind of goes under the radar for KO. So he helps her. They're trying to find a few things, but in the end it's revealed, after KO accidentally gets swallowed by this robot head in the junkyard, that her backpack was never broken, and that she did all of this just to spend time with KO and just learn more about him, as well as find someone who could possibly be a friend to her. Like I said, she kind of offhandedly mentioned earlier in the episode that she didn't have any friends. And throughout the entire episode, you can see how hard she's trying to be friends with him. When he breaks the robot guy, whose name I cannot think of right now, when she breaks his razor in order to get the one part that she needed, KO points out how that's wrong, and she goes to fix it, and she makes it better than ever. When he decides he wants to play tag with her, she gets into it, even though she doesn't understand it at first, because she's not used to someone really wanting to spend time with her. And it's probably, I hate to say it this way, but it's probably because she's nerdy. A lot of people in real life even will look down on nerdy kids. They'll see them as weird, or just unusual, or strange, or in some cases unworthy of your attention. There's a lot of kids, even going up to high school age, who will look down upon the nerds and say that they're wasting their life, and that they're not worth even thinking about. And a lot of time, because of that, the nerds either have to hang out just amongst each other, which is fine, well and good, or there's a lot of cases where they're often alone. And it's not to the point that a lot of media portrays it as. A lot of media portrays nerds as always being alone, always being the outcasts and stuff, which, again, that does very much happen, but media kind of inflates it a little bit. Dendy, though, is definitely a very realistic type of character. She comes across as someone who's so invested in her little quirks, her little, her technology and stuff, that everybody would probably look down on her and see her as just the weird girl. I've known people like that. In some ways, I was one of those people growing up. I was definitely different. I had friends in school, yes, but there were a lot of times where I felt like a loner. And there were a lot of times where I just didn't feel like people understood me and people avoided me. I mean, even throughout high school, even though I had some friends in school, I sat alone at lunch almost the entire time. I would always sit alone off by myself in the corner somewhere. And again, I knew others who were like that too, and I've always been shy and haven't, unfortunately, wasn't brave enough to go talk to them either when they were sitting alone. And I regret that now. And I still regret that I have issues even doing that still. I still have trouble even talking to people, even when I notice that no one else is. And I hate that, and especially since I've been through it. I don't know, just something about Dendy I fell in love with. When she showed that she just wanted a friend and it was very clear she was trying so hard to get that, it broke my heart a little. When she showed in the end that she cared and that she was doing all of this just to get to close to KO in the first place, it was so sweet. And when KO just accepted her like he tends to do in the end, when he accepted her and without even needing to say it, agreed to be her friend, she was so happy to finally have someone. And she could enter into her information on KO that she's an ally of his, a friend. And that's so beautiful. I love it. The episode made me cry, for crying out loud. And usually the only time I cry in an episode, if I cry during or after an episode, you know it's good. At least for me, it's good. You know that I clearly loved it and it clearly meant something to me. And this episode did. This was one of those episodes that was the first case of this show being something more. Yes, the show has had a lot of definitely clever stuff in it that has shown that it's got so much potential. But this was the first step episode. All these shows have it. Steven Universe had it. My Little Pony had it. Let's talk about those. My Little Pony. So when I first started watching My Little Pony, I acknowledged it had some good stuff to it and that it had a lot of great potential. But I wasn't really getting into it. The episode that was the turning point episode for me was Dragon Shy, Season 1, Episode 7. That episode made me cry when I saw it, because I connected with Fluttershy on a very personal level, and seeing her use her friendships with the other main six in order to overcome her fears and stand up for her friends who she clearly cared about so dearly, even at that early point in their friendship. It was beautiful, and it meant so much. And then Steven Universe. Steven Universe has had so many episodes, I have to try to remember exactly which one it was. So give me a second here. But Steven Universe, like, when I first started watching that, it was kind of the same way. It's like, oh, this show has a lot of great potential, but I don't know where it's going with this yet. I don't know what they're trying to accomplish with it. It was kind of one of those cases where it was really showing that it was willing to go the extra mile, but it wasn't yet doing so. And I just remembered what episode it was that changed that for me. There were actually two, and they kind of they weren't back to back, and they weren't really like two-parter or anything, but it was both of them together that I feel did it for me, which is not completely usual, but that's how it worked for Steven Universe. First was episode 5 of the first season, which was Frybo. That one was legitimately frightening. And I've mentioned it before, I love good horror-themed episodes of non-horror themed shows. Like when you have a show like Courage the Cowardly Dog, it's a horror-themed show. So it's like, yeah, it's going to be based around that concept the entire time. But for example, let's say you have a show like Samurai Jack. It's an action adventure show with a lot of mysticism and like heavy lore and stuff to it. A lot of great sci-fi action as well. But it was anything but horror. Then they brought in the episode Jack in the Haunted House, and it was chilling in all the best ways. So I love horror episodes, and Frybo was definitely a horror-themed episode. Um, the idea of the Frybo mascot, which was already creepy alone in its appearance, coming to life and attacking people, the way it forced the fries down people's throats, the way it bled out ketchup, and we knew it was ketchup and mustard and stuff and all, obviously, but it was definitely simulating blood, and it was very clear in that intention. It was dark for an episode, and it really showed that this show was willing to go the extra mile. But then the show that really was, I feel, the turnaround episode for me, the one that really made it stick for me, was only a couple episodes later, funny enough, Bubble Buddies. Bubble Buddies may not seem like the most exciting episode. It may not seem like the most impressive episode either. It's a simple one, but it really stuck with me. If you remember, in Bubble Buddies, Steven, it's where he first meets Connie. He saves her from a falling rock, and they're stuck in the bubble. The moment that really did it for me was when they're at the bottom of the ocean, and that's when their friendship really blooms. It's when they first truly become friends. And it's a beautiful, heartfelt, and even to a point, intense moment. When Connie has her little breakdown there, it really, like, it gives you chills almost, because you feel what she's going through, and you understand. Like, if you were in that situation, you'd probably feel the same thing. And it kind of reminds me of Dendy in a way. It kind of reminds me of Dendy. Because she also didn't have any friends at that point, but Steven, being Steven, just accepted her. And he wanted to be her friend. And it worked. The bubble ended up popping because of it. And, well, all is history. They've become friends, implied that they have romantic interests in each other. They've become a fusion with Stevani. And it's beautiful. Their relationship is amazing. And it all started there. That was the real turning point episode for me. And for this series, for OKKO, it's Dendy. That episode was just so meaningful to me. And I know I've been talking for like 12 and a half minutes about only episode 8, only Dendy. But I needed to talk about that. I needed to talk about these connections I made with these other shows regarding it. And how much it means, just this kind of episode, how much it meant to me. This was the turning point episode. This is where I think I'm going to fall in love with this show. Like, really fall in love with it. And it's probably not going to get into the really good stuff again yet. Just like with Steven Universe, which, funny enough, I compare it to that because Ian James Quarterly and all. But just like with Steven Universe, there's still going to be some bad episodes after that. There's still going to be a lot of just random crap. But this is where it's starting to show what this show can be. And I think that's what we can hope for. I think that gives me hope. But let's talk about this next episode after that. So, I don't remember the exact way it was worded, but it's like, can you check the back or something like that? So, Rad is basically bragging that he knows everything, and he's convincing KO of it. Enid is just kind of rolling her eyes, but then an employee comes up and is like, oh, do you have shaving cream? It's like, I need shaving cream, and there's none left on the shelf. And so they go to the back to look for it, and they end up somehow entering this procedurally generated dungeon. They find the mummy girl in there. They find all kinds of interesting things. And they keep coming across these mimics. If you don't know, a mimic is a violent, evil creature that takes the form of a physical object in order to basically trick its prey. they're used a lot in fantasy things, especially things like Dungeons and Dragons, as well as various other like big high fantasy kind of stories. They're even in the Dark Souls video games. Their most common form tends to be a treasure chest. They lure adventurers with hopes of treasure, and then they eat them. They devour them in that manner. And seeing mimics in this, they were obviously made a little more kid-friendly, but I like that concept. And I like that they showed them not as a treasure chest, but as pretty much everything else. A flashlight, a floor, another person, even a can of shaving cream. Because mimics can basically be anything. But they're always treasure chests, and in this, they did something different. I love the idea of the procedurally generated dungeon. I don't know how the back room turned into that, but whatever. I love the concept of it, though, and I love the little bit we saw of it. I hope that comes back in the future, because that was interesting and fun. There was the one guy, I think his name was Gary, who was down there. I guess he's another employee, but, I mean, maybe has been trapped down there, unable to find his way. There's a lot of questions it brings up, and I do hope that they explore more into the ideas of this dungeon in the future. But the episode more focused around Rad and Enid, and once again, there are kind of differences in viewpoints here. Rad kept bragging that he knew everything. Even when he was proven false, he still tried to brag to KO. It's like, oh no, I knew that would happen, or something, and stuff like that. It almost got them killed with the broken elevator and stuff. Enid was still rolling her eyes and complaining a little bit, being snarky, but she was kind of just going with it a lot of the time. And until it started to get to be too much. Once they got lost and everything, she had enough, and she was done with that idea. So she snapped at him, and they started arguing. And eventually, he became too stubborn, even. And so she and KO left him behind. And she had to teach KO a very important lesson. Even sometimes the people you look up to don't know everything. They're not perfect. They're people. That's important. A lot of people out there think that they're heroes, whether their heroes be sports stars, actors, the people who make their favorite games, whatever. A lot of people view their heroes as perfect, these godlike beings that they have to be afraid to even be in the same room with. And I've been there. I've admittedly been there. I've told this story before, but when I went to one of my first ever conventions, Ponyville Cider Fest in 2014, I was working the children's room. And while I was working in there at one point, Andrea Libman, the voice of Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy in My Little Pony, came in. Now, at that point, obviously, I had been watching the show, and she was my favorite character. Well, either of them. Both of them were actually my favorites. Both Fluttershy and Pinkie Pie. Now, I mean, obviously, that's changed by this point, but at that time. And I was really nervous to be in the same room with her. In fact, I nearly had a panic attack. Like a legitimate panic attack right there while in the room with her. I tried to continue helping the kids, but I was locking up. And after I got off and everything, I was going to go to her signing session. And I went to her signing session. I met her. I mentioned how we had messaged each other a little bit. We had tweeted back and forth a little bit on Twitter and stuff. She knew who I was. Like, she actually, and I know she knew who I was because she referenced something that was said. So I knew she actually knew and wasn't just saying that. I got a print signed by her, and I got a picture with her. Granted, it was a really crappy picture at the time because I didn't have my camera. All I had at that time was my Nintendo 3DS, which I since had sold to my sister. But the point is, at the time, that's what I used, and I got a better picture with her at a convention later on after that. But still, the point is, I got to meet her, and admittedly afterwards, after I left the signing room, I went to the bathroom and I broke down. I bawled. I bawled. I was having trouble breathing because it was the first time I really met someone who had impacted my life that much. I mentioned it before, MLP saved my life from suicide, from depression. And I still face depression and anxiety and stuff even today, but it literally saved me from killing myself on the day I was going to take a knife to my throat. So it meant a lot, and especially Fluttershy and Pinkie Pie being the characters that really were the ones to change my life that way. So getting to meet Andrea, the voice behind those two characters, it was impactful for me. And since then, like, I've gotten a lot more used to being around voice actors and other people like that. I've met a lot of VAs and stuff, and it's awesome still. It's still great to meet them. But I've become a lot more calm about it. I'm able to hold conversations with them. I'm able to, I've asked them about roles they've done. I think the only one after that I really had that kind of moment with was Tara Strong when I met her at BronyCon 2016. And that's because it was freaking Tara Strong, to be fair. But everyone else, it's like I've held conversations with, I've asked them about their roles, I've asked them different questions here and there, and it's like, yeah, at this point I'm comfortable with it. But when I was first there, it's like, yeah, I kind of viewed them in this perfected way. But I've come to realize they're people too. Sure, I look up to them, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with seeing them as cool for who they are and what they do. But I have to view them as people, and I have to view them as deserving of respect and, sure, maybe some admiration, but I don't need to go overboard with it. I need them I need to treat them like I would want to be treated in that kind of situation. So yeah. And I've been in, I guess you could say I've been in that kind of situation. I've been recognized at conventions. I don't know how, but there have been people who have recognized me from YouTube, which blows my mind. Not a lot, like only like maybe 3 people in my life have recognized me for that at a convention. But still, outside of like friends and stuff. But still, that's astounding to me, and it's like when they recognize me and they treated me like a normal person, like it's like, oh hey, and they struck up a conversation with me and stuff, and it was nice. And so I definitely, because I've faced that, I definitely want to do the same for others, especially ones who are definitely bigger than me and who probably get those kind of crazed, weird, and overzealous fans all the time. I want to show them there are people out there who will treat them normal. So, yeah. It was a very good lesson for this episode to teach. And in the end, Rad came back to them, and he even learned a little bit of a lesson. He tried to hide it being him, but he showed that he was willing to throw down his pride, throw it away for a minute, and do the right thing. So, yeah. It was a nice episode. It was fun. It was funny, and there was a lot of just cool stuff in it. Again, the mimics, the procedurally generated dungeon, I just really enjoyed that stuff. But yeah, so I'm surprised. I have been talking about OKKO episodes for over 20 minutes. Usually, I even said it at the beginning, I usually have very little to say about this show afterwards. Again, not that it's bad, but because it doesn't leave me with a lot to talk about. But these episodes left me with a lot to talk about. And that's impressive. And it shows that, yeah, I was right in believing that this show had that kind of potential. It took a little bit, but it's starting to show it. And it's definitely reached those episodes that have turned the show around a little bit. And I thought it would. I kind of figured it would at some point. I just didn't know when. I'm really glad that Ian and the other show staff decided to make it sooner rather than later. Now, hopefully they don't drop the ball and they continue to show some great stuff. And not every episode has to be amazing or be this big, impactful thing. But hopefully they continue to show some more great stuff and soon start to bring in the good continuity I love so much. Um, in the meantime, tell me in the comments below what you thought of these 2 episodes of OKKO Let's Be Heroes. What did you think of Dendy and her desire to just have a friend? And what did you think of the procedurally generated dungeon in search of shaving cream? Tell me your thoughts on all of that and more in the comments below, and thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.
And though you've come through many obstacles, shed tears along the way, you're still standing, live, love, laugh.